Mr. Assistant?
Just a couple of things in response, Your Honor. First of all, there is no resisting arrest charge that's pending before the court. I just want to make that very, very clear. You can take a look.
It's irrelevant.
Right. And the other thing that is not in dispute, that is critical, is that if the key here is that Sue Allen is the individual that is tasked with keeping order, the reality is that Sue Allen never asked Mr. Baer to leave.
Right.
All right. And if, in fact, she is tasked with that very critical decision-making power to cut off public discourse, if that is her job, that was never communicated to Mr. Baer. By her.
Say that one more time.
She never communicated to him that he had to leave the forum.
Oh, all right, but she did, I think her deposition stands for the proposition that she admitted, or at least my notes indicate, my review, that she had asked Mr. Baer to stop speaking several times.
And we'll take that as fact, that's fine, and you can see it on the video.
Right.
But, again, to stop an individual from speaking in a public forum, I mean, that's a very interesting concept in and of itself. And to avoid what the consequences are going to be if one continues to speak and not explain that to the individual is frightening.
Right.
I mean, basically, if you tell me to shut up, and I'm saying, wait a minute, we're here to discuss this thing, why should I shut up? I'm in a public forum. And you say, well, you got to shut up, and at the end of everybody's opportunity to speak, you'll get another 2 minutes. I mean, like how we do it, generally at these meetings anyway. Or you're just cut off, you have to leave now. I mean, you have to either give him what the result's going to be in order to enforce this disruption or this disorderly thing. You're not disorderly unless you're out of order and know what the consequences are. But when you call a public meeting to enter into public discourse, one can readily assume that what you're saying, the speech that you're out there talking about, the subject, that's acceptable. Now, did he interrupt somebody? Well, if you look at the video, there wasn't a request by the individual that was interrupted to complete a comment or a thought even after Mr. Baer was escorted through. So interruption is an interesting word. My understanding of interruption is that he wasn't able to complete what he wanted to say. He was able to complete what he wanted to say, and he didn't ask for any additional opportunity to finish his thoughts. So, I mean, interruption, I think what it really was his response with regard to a personal kind of a comment that was made. And his response was back to that individual in a personal way, probably. Sure. But certainly had to do with what was going on at the meeting as well. So, again, in all fairness, and with regard to the state being able to try its case in its entirety, quite frankly, there really aren't any facts in dispute that the court needs to go through. I mean, you've got the video before you, you've got the depositions before you. There's very little with regard to what the state can offer in addition to what is already there. It's fully filmed and fully covered with deposition. So, I mean, that's where I would leave that particular issue.
Mr. Bradbury, you indicated in your argument, or at least to the extent that sort of the warning was you need to go back, or I took it that Mr. Baer needed to go back sort of through the chain of command to raise the issues that he continued to speak about. Am I getting that right from what you were saying?
Yes, Your Honor.
But he already exhausted those, didn't he?
He had spoken to the school.
Yeah.
They had from what the deposition would show, at least from Peter Sawyer, a productive meeting,
right,
if you will.
This is that opt-in, opt-out business, right?
Yes, it is. And I obviously, we're not privy to that meeting, so we can't speak as to what the content exactly was, but it's our understanding they spoke about this matter,
right,
that the end result was a positive result.
And Mr. Sawyer was pretty complimentary in terms of the demeanor and.
He was. He was. I don't recall any testimony coming out from Mr. Sawyer with respect to knowing that there was going to be a confrontation or anything, or discourse at the meeting that evening.
Okay. I always get hung up in State v. Murray as to the public nature of, do you take the position that Lieutenant Leach is, if you will, that public person who might be offended by the, if you will, disruption?
It's my
The
understanding.
defense takes a position that they have to take what comes to them, and you seem to be objecting,
Well,
and I'm not sure what you're objecting to, their position that a police officer is not, if you will, the traditional member of the public, because at the wee hours of the morning, etc., they're faced with a variety of incivilities that they need to have a little bit of tougher skin.
Your Honor, no, I understand the State v. Murray, that with disorderly conduct that we cannot be the victim of the matter.
Okay.
No, that is my position.
Okay. I have that right, Mr. Bedrick, now?
Yes. We also assert that it extends to moderators in certain situations.
To judges?
Well, in certain situations, I think it would certainly extend to judges.
I think we're right in the mix.
You're in the
As
penumbra
hard,
zone.
huh?
Penumbra zone.
There you go. As hard as we try to ensure that, or at least I try to ensure that what is known to the participants is that this is their court, not mine. And so therefore I try to make sure that civility is the bottom line.
Of course, and I, that's exactly the reason why I think many judges, before issuing some sort of contempt sanction, have a lengthy colloquy, and also involve the bailiffs or any other court security that's around before they make a decision. Obviously, there's some interplay with the judicial code of conduct in that respect, but the public expects judges to have thicker skin and to be able to be cool-headed and levying any sort of remedy that they have to keep their order in their courtroom. And I think Murray, to a certain extent, would extend to that, as to just things that would normally occur in a courtroom. Certainly, if it was the kind of disruption that is not likely to occur in a courtroom, then maybe it wouldn't fall under the same umbrella. But as to speaking out and things like that happens in a courtroom, especially if there's a witness in the gallery that disputes what another witness is saying, or someone's not liking a ruling, that's to be expected to a certain extent, just because of human nature, and certainly disorderly conduct would come natural, would flow naturally, and shouldn't be much of a surprise to a judge.
Mr. Weber?
Your Honor, the state's position with respect to the disruption, and I outlined it in my objection, is that there was a citizen that the state would intend on calling during the course of the trial. That person has been spoken to. That person chose not to give a statement, however, is of the understanding that he would be called as a witness should this go to trial.
I don't know if that's at all each and every bit on the agenda, but were you able to get through the agenda that night? Yes. I mean, there was no need to recall an extra meeting or anything because of what Mr. Baer did? No. Did you have to recess the meeting because of Mr. Baer's behavior or anything like that? No. I mean, quite frankly, you got a meeting that started from beginning to the end without a citizen complaining during the course of the meeting where an agenda was completed. I have to say that that's a fairly successful public meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradbury, anything further?
Just because the citizen did not make a complaint to Sue Allen at the meeting does not mean the citizen does not have a complaint. Furthermore, with respect to being able to complete the meeting, we don't know. We would have to speculate whether or not the meeting would have concluded had not Lieutenant Leach intervened at that point in time. We don't know. It completed. Mr. Baer was removed from the meeting. Mr. Baer was given the opportunity to to stop his behavior. He did not. Lieutenant Leach intervened, at which point in time, yes, it was raised that I guess you'll have to arrest me. Lieutenant Leach did arrest him based upon his observations, based upon the totality of the circumstances. Had he not made that arrest, we don't know how the meeting would have ended had it not been for the arrest.
Mr. Sisti, anything from?
Nothing submitted.
All right, thank you very much, folks. Appreciate you getting up early in the morning, and we'll take that entirely under advisement, issue an order. Hopefully it'll be out as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Have a great day. Nice to meet you, Mr. Baer.
Thank you, Judge.
All please rise.
Croc TV.